Have you found the fungicide? Then what are you waiting for, asshats? Matt is dying. Quickly, in front of our eyes. Bring me some fungicide.
So I am very uncultured when it comes to the PC. So Wasteland is a franchise comeback.
Yeah, so
Was this
the
kickstarted?
original
Was this
Wasteland-
crowdfunded?
This was Kickstarter. So this was one of the big success stories on Kickstarter. The original Wasteland came out in 1988.
Wow.
So this is kind of 26 years in the making, this sequel, which is crazy. And that game, Wasteland, was a little bit before my time personally. I wasn't born until 89.
I was going to ask that question actually, but I didn't want to hear the
that's
answer.
Fair. But I really love PC RPGs, and it influenced a lot of the PC RPGs that I hold very dear to me, including the Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. Those games are considered the spiritual successor to Wasteland. And the story behind Wasteland 2, not to get into too much history, is that Brian Fargo went from publisher to publisher pitching it. This was a dream thing that he wanted to work on. And they were like, no, these types of games don't sell.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have to change it in this way, or, you know, we don't want to do it, basically. And so Kickstarter was the way they were like, okay, no, we're going to make this an old school computer role-playing game. Here you go. And for the most part, that is exactly what they have delivered.
And do you want that? Is this something you feel is missing from the role-playing genre? Is this specifically on the PC? Is this a gameplay experience you don't get that often these days?
So there's been this weird sort of renaissance recently. I mean, you have Divinity Original Sin, which is sort of like a sister game to this, I feel like, in some ways. And then you have Project Eternity that Obsidian working on. So there are clearly people who want to make them, and they keep getting funded. And so, yeah, I think there is a lack of it. And playing Wasteland 2, at this point, I've gotten a chance to play more Wasteland 2 than Divinity, and I think the answer is yes. There is something in these games that we were missing, and I'm glad is back, and I'm glad people are responding to it.
Do you know when the future was set in the 1988 version? Was it like in the year 2010? Have we gone past the apocalypse in the Wasteland universe?
No, that is actually a question I should absolutely know. I don't know exactly when the apocalypse happened, but I was going through like sort of this water plant, and I found, you remember like in the early 90s where cell phones looked like white or black bricks with a giant antenna sticking out of them? You encounter one of those, and the like accompanying text is, wow, they actually managed to shrink a cell phone down to the size of a brick. So I think the apocalypse happened before modern day.
But this is, we've just been calling it Wasteland around the office, but it's Wasteland 2. So
Wasteland
this is a
2.
sequel to the original Wasteland.
Yep.
Do they account for the 26-year absence of the franchise, or does this kind of pick up where the first one left off?
Another good question. So there are some connections, like your team, your party that you make at the beginning of the game, you're known as Desert Rangers. So those Desert Rangers also existed in Wasteland 1, and what you sort of do is you're protectors of the waste, right? So you have all these different places, all these different groups, and you're trying to keep balance among them and trying to keep things civilized as best you can.
So do they give you people, or can you pick which characters you want to have in your party? Like, how connected do you get to these guys?
So again, being unfamiliar with Wasteland, when I first started playing it, you can choose either pre-made characters or you can make your own. And I tried to make my own, and I was like, wow, there's so many skills, and you don't get a lot of points. I'm worried that I'm going to put things into skills that I shouldn't have, and then the whole thing would be a mess. So I went with pre-made characters initially, and I played for a while, and that was okay. And then I realized exactly what that pre-made group was missing. I started completely fresh, built a party from the ground up, put skills into the things that I was doing the most, and had a lot more success.
Do you usually get obsessive about reviews like this, or just when you play games by yourself? That seems like a personal thing, not necessarily something you do if you were reviewing a game. So you want it to be more effective? It wasn't just because that caters more to your personal tastes, but now your team gets the job done easier?
I think it was multiple things. I do think there was a little bit of like obsession there. Like I'm somebody that likes to. That's why I love these games, is because there's so much to dig into, and we can get more into that in a little bit. But it was that I don't think you can properly review one of these games if you don't make your own party. I think getting in and tinkering with the skills and deciding for yourself, okay, what do I need to be prepared for, and not having the game do it for you is an important step. I just wanted to do that pre-made part for a little bit to get myself grounded with what was going on.
Does it seem like a big game? I know it's too early to tell. Was Wasteland 1 a big game Did it take a long time to get through it because that's just kind of the nature of the game? It's a slower pace, or is how big is the Wasteland?
The Wasteland seems pretty big, but they present it in a really good way. So you sort of start out with your boss, let's call him. He's a higher rank than you are in the desert rangers, and he sends you off to reestablish these radio towers. You want to get a signal from them, and so you're going, and you have to go to these 2 locations. And as you're going there, you get a call, and you're like, there are 2 crises happening simultaneously at 2 different locations. Which one do you want to go to? And if you go to one, then the other one will get screwed over, and so you have to face the consequences of that, and you won't be able to do everything that's available there.
Is that new ground for them, or did they do that in the first game?
So I'm very not familiar with Wasteland 1.
You gotta do your research, man. Jeez.
I just haven't had time to play it. So I own Wasteland 1. It came out on Steam in sort of the build-up to Wasteland 2, and I want to go back and I want to play Wasteland 1. I'm just not.
Because it's a crowd-funded game, have they been talking about the first game a lot? Would this be the kind of thing where you could maybe get a discount for it on Steam? Is it available on Steam? How can
Wasteland 1 is available on Steam.
So people want to maybe prep themselves before this game comes out?
Definitely. From what I've seen of Wasteland 1, 1988, the interface is not kind of the most user-friendly thing, so it would take you a while to kind of get used to that.
Is Wasteland 2 visually kind of a nod to the original game, or does it look like a 2014 action RPG?
It's
tactical action RPG.
It looks like an updated version of classic isometric role-playing games. It looks like an updated version of Fallout 1. It looks like an updated version of Baldur's Gate, except not fantasy.
Divinity versus Wasteland, which one looks better? Let me put it that way.
I would say Divinity looks significantly better than Wasteland 2.
It is a wasteland, so it's like you can only make a wasteland look so attractive.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly not something I want to get hung up about, because I really think for these games, looking good only goes so far. That's not what you're there for.
Yeah.
But your character models are pretty crude. They're blocky almost, but it's fine. It never doesn't come into play. This is a game where you're doing a lot of reading, right? So you're kind of making the own adventure in your mind. And that was another thing I wanted to bring up. The voice acting is, this is going to sound harsh, but it's very amateurish, right? It doesn't sound like professionals doing these voices. Every single line, the timing's a little bit off, the cadence is a little bit off. It sounds like friends and family, maybe not quite that bad, but came in and helped veil those things. But it's not bothering me one bit. I think it's very important for games to figure out the most important thing they need to do and then do it. And Wasteland 2 is a game where I feel like I'm struggling to survive in this post-apocalyptic world based on how they handle skills, based on how they handle combat, based on how they handle resources, all of this stuff. That's what's important, and I think that's what they really nail.
And I think, not to get off topic, but that's something, I don't review games that often, Ben.
Right.
I've reviewed a couple games the last couple months, but I only review maybe a handful a year. And so that's one thing that I'm starting to notice is that, a lot of times I'll play through a game and I'll have a huge gripe list. And then when I'm done, I realize they didn't really matter. Technically I can get through all of this minutia and point out all these weird things or things that weren't necessarily on par with other games in the genre. But I didn't care. I still had a lot of fun playing the game, and I think that speaks for itself. So to explain to the audience watching, when are we going to get a review of Wasteland? Is it something you're slowly chipping away at it, but the game's coming out soon, so you wanted people to know the word on Wasteland 2 from Ben.
Definitely.
But a review is incoming.
Yeah, so I'm playing it. I've been playing it all day today. I'm playing it all day tomorrow. I've already played a bunch. So it's something that I'm hoping for Monday, but I don't want to lock myself in.
We don't make promises here at GameTrailers. We just work as hard as we can.
The thing that's most important to me for a game like this, where there's so much to see, I might even start over again and just for a second, check other things out. I want to make sure, that I'm evaluating it as fairly as
just
possible.
to check other things out? That's why you would start the whole thing over?
Let me, there's so much to say. Sometimes I get frustrated because these editorial reports can only be so long, and these games are so big.
Tick-tack.
But like I was talking about, so you have these 2 places that you can save. Mm-hmm. If you don't save one of them, you don't get to see everything there. There's so many quests, there's so many interactions that you can have that you just completely missed out on. And so seeing that stuff and seeing how it changes, and is it roughly the same, or does it really take me in a totally different direction, I think is a valid, question.
Do you take that guilt with you? Does it keep you up at night? What if I had saved those other people?
When I finish a review, I want to have that feeling like, okay, I've seen what this game has to offer. And I feel like if I'm not ready to do that, then we probably shouldn't do a review.
So in 4 weeks, we'll get your review.
No,
of
next
Wasteland
week.
2.
It'll happen next week. I've been playing a ton of it.
Cool. Well, we'll look forward to that. Obviously, way more details about the game as you get deeper into it.
Yeah, there's so
Thank
much
you
to
for
say,
taking
like I
the
said.
time to chat about it.